we find ourselves in precarious situations, and most of those situations we have allowed ourselves to get into. Zacchaeus had a job. He was a tax collector. But because he had some authority and he had some power, he also became an extortionist. He began to extort money from people because he had the authority to do so. But his authority to do so was only to collect the taxes. But you know how it is, when you get the money, you get greedy. So he became an extortionist as well. He cheated folk, robbed folk out of their money. But there comes a time that even when you have a good thing going, and you have a good pansy scheme going, that it all must come to an end. Somebody better go on up, talk to, right up their button and talk to Brother Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff thought he was going to make off with a whole lot of money, and he did for a while. He did for a while. He went on, and he thought that this scheme would never end. But it comes a time that when you steal and rob and do things to people, that sometimes their conscience stands up. Right. Now, you may say to yourself, well, Pastor, I've never robbed anybody or did anything to anybody. But sometimes in our life, we get tired of the things that we're doing. And maybe something that you're doing in your life that's not right. And maybe something that you're, some way that you're living, and you find that it's just not right. And you just get tired. And so Zacchaeus was at the point where he just got tired. And he heard that Jesus had done all these miracles because, if you look in the book of Luke, Luke was an explicit writer. And so when Luke was telling the story, the Gospels are synoptic. And so being that they are parallel, they all sort of contain the same thing. But in Luke's Gospel, Luke talked about Zacchaeus. I'm going to put myself out on the limb theologically right now, because I'm going to say that the other Gospels may not be included Zacchaeus because it was insignificant in who he was. Because he was an extortionist, and because he was a little man, he may not have been as important to Matthew, Mark, and John. But he was important enough for Luke to say, I'm going to take the time and include Zacchaeus' story in my gospel, or in my writing. So what I'm saying is that we look and we see, when I was reading this and praying and researching, I wanted to find out a little bit about Zacchaeus, and found out that he, told you he was an extortionist, and there was things that was happening that shouldn't have been happening for him. And I think that's why most of us are sitting here today, is because we have gotten to the place once in our life that we was out on a limb. And we need somebody to come and rescue us. And the reason that we're sitting here, I know the reason I'm standing here, because I find myself out on a limb. And plenty of times, even after that, I found myself out on a limb. But he's faithful.
No, that's right.
Come on, y'all act like that. He's faithful to bring us, to snatch us and bring us back to where we should be. So I thank God for his faithfulness to me. I don't know about you, but I'm glad for his faithfulness to me this morning, this afternoon. So here we are. Zacchaeus comes, and he heard about Jesus, and he was, you wasn't always, maybe you weren't the most popular person in high school. We got some folk that was popular in high school. They were popular in the community, but you may not have been that popular. So there was three things that Zacchaeus had going for him. Out of those three things, only one was on the positive note. Well, the three things that Zacchaeus had going for him, on the negative side, he was short. And also on the negative side, he was an extortionist, and folk didn't like him. They didn't like him. Anybody don't like you? Do you feel like there's some people that don't like me? But that's okay. I'm not going to feel bad about it. But he had those things not going for him. He was disliked, and he was a little man. So now he's dealing with his stature because he's short, and nobody liked him. Now, can I bring it home to the church? Some of us are out of shape. more round than we want to be.
Yeah.
Not as tall, and we don't have the figure that we want to have. And some folk just still don't like us. And so we spend our time and our effort going to the gym, trying to look like somebody else, so that maybe folk will like us better. But if you take the time, I'm not talking about going to the gym and saying it's a bad thing, but if you're going to go to the gym and work out because you want to do better for yourself.
Right.
Not because you want to look like somebody else does. Not because you want to look buff like somebody else, or you want to have a Coke bottle shape, as they say, because somebody else walks in church and they get all the looks, and when you come in church, they roll their eyes. And they make room for the one that comes in with the shape, and make sure that she has a seat. And when you come in, they look at you and say that seat is taken. So don't worry about that. But if you're going to do something to better yourself, do it because you want to do it to better your own self, not because you want to be like somebody else. So the only positive thing that Zacchaeus had going for him was that he was rich. But even on that end of the stick, he may have been rich, but he didn't get rich because he was such a hard worker. He got rich by being dishonest. So that lets you know that even back in the Old Testament, yes, they were liars, cheaters, extortionists, prostitutes, and all kinds of stuff. But now, here he is, hearing about Jesus, and I believe that he had got to the point in his life. I'm this light, I'm short, I ain't got nothing going for myself other than I got a little money in the bank. And the money that I got, I cheated to get that. So the Bible says that he ran to get to the front of the place, the front of the crowd, so he could see, because he knew he was so short that he couldn't see if he stayed in the back of the crowd. Now this lets me know that God, I wanted to compare the shortness, because a lot of us, the Bible lets us know, as Pastor Decker talked this morning about, we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So that lets you know short is in our characteristic. So if we have become short, or we were already short, God knows where we're short at. So he knows that I was short in a whole lot of things, but yet and still he loved me enough, cared about me enough, that he sent his son to die for me. So here we go. He's running to the front of the crowd so that he can get to the front so he can see. Well, when he sees that didn't work, he climbed up into the sycamore tree. So now, what I wanted to talk about was, what was the significance of the sycamore? Because the Bible could have just clearly just said that he climbed into a tree. But the significance of the sycamore, which is known technically as a Ficus sarcomomus. Now, the thing that was significant about this ficus is that back in that time, for folk that say that Jesus was not of color, those trees are mainly, there's a few in North America and other places, but those trees were mainly grown in hot climates in Africa. And so where is Egypt? Egypt is where? It's over there in Africa. So that when the significance of this tree, and a lot of folk will argue the fact that he climbed the sycamore tree so that he could see Jesus, but also so that he could eat, because this tree grew figs. And so he can also get a meal, but I guarantee you, we see the significance of shooting down that theology is because he might have been hungry in the flesh, but his spirit man was hungry. So we can shoot that analogy down. So he climbed to the sycamore tree, and the significance of the sycamore tree is that it represents divinity, it represents eternity, and it represents strength. So along with divinity